Well, I'm getting use out of my boa. Okay, I needed a prop, and I didn't want to bring butter up here. So I went with feathers instead. It seemed a more reasonable answer than, I don't know, dyeing my hair pink. I have debated about that, and I'm sure my nieces would be happy to help me with it. I just haven't made that decision yet. I've done blue, I've done black. I don't know. Maybe I'll do pink at some point. But boas are, feathers are semi-appropriate. I mean, they're not purple, but, they're semi-appropriate given the fact that the Charlotte sibling I'm discussing today has like this feathered boa coat that she wears that is like somewhat reminiscent of Doflamingo. Although Doflamingo's at least makes some sense, but Galette's just kind of is there, I guess. It's not really, we never get an exact answer as to why it's there, but then again, a lot of the Charlotte siblings costume designs and wardrobe is just like, it's there. So time to talk about Charlotte Galette. And then I have one more Charlotte sibling to discuss after this. And we're going to jump all the way far down to Pudding. Will be the last one that I discuss for the Charlotte family and Totland in general. At least at the moment. I mean, at whatever point in time we get any more information about the Charlotte siblings or something like that, I might do something, but we'll see. Although Smoothie and Montdor popped up in one of the recent chapters, so that was nice. Although, at least at the time that I'm recording this, they're the only ones that have popped up. I don't know. Subsequently, there may have been someone else who popped up. Maybe we'll have seen Galette by then, but I doubt that. But we'll see. Although the last time we did see Galette, she was with them, but I'll go over that when I get further into this. So, Charlotte Galette is the 18th daughter and 42nd child of the Charlotte family. She is the older twin sister of Poré, I think is her name. And fun fact, Poré, she is the exact middle child of the 85 children that Big Mom has. She is the exact middle child. So by technicality, Galette is where all of the older children end. And then just after Galette, I don't remember who that is, whoever number 44 is where like all of the younger children begin, because they have like the older siblings and the younger siblings and that, because there's like the favorite of the older sisters and favorite of the younger sisters and favorite of the older brothers and favorite of the younger brothers and stuff like that. So Galette is kind of like that cutoff point, which is kind of interesting, I guess. And she is obviously an officer within the Big Mom Pirates, and she serves as the Totland Minister of Butter, which is very appropriate, on Margarine Island. She is 31 years old, and I just like her design. That's one of the main reasons she's in this discussion thing, is just I like her design. She's kind of like an interesting, it's simple, but it fits exactly with like what you would expect from the Big Mom family. With her, reddish hair and, the purple cloak and the pink dress and everything, and, very scantily clad legs on display and heels, and she fights with butter, which is, I love that. I'm like, I don't know why, but I love the fact that she fights with butter. So just on that note, so, her devil fruit is the Bata Bata no Mi, or the butter fruit. It is a paramecia type devil fruit that allows her to create and control butter. She can also control like the mixture of the butter, of like how sticky and creamy and different stuff like that it is. She is able to use that in regards to, manipulating it. Kind of the main thing we actually end up seeing her use her power for is when she captures Nami. When her and Montdor and some of the other siblings and like their little army of, the peace, chess peacekeepers, make their way over to where Nami and Luffy are, when they're trying to wait for Sanji to show back up again. And she ends up capturing Nami by, tying her hands together with butter. Which, I mean, okay, that's a rather good way of doing that. I mean, it's one that makes sense for there to be like a butter devil fruit. I mean, you think about it and it's just like, well, I mean, there's other food-based devil fruits that we see throughout this arc specifically. I mean, we haven't seen, the mochi devil fruit yet, but we see some of the other ones. Up to this point in time, we've had Cracker's devil fruit in regards to the Cracker, his, biscuit devil fruit and stuff like that. We're introduced to what Charlotte Opera can do with his whipped cream devil fruit during this same battle. So again, that's something that makes semi amount of sense. We haven't seen too much else in regards to that, specifically in this bit, prior to this point, but it's just like a butter devil fruit. I mean, I guess that makes sense. That seems, I guess, to a degree, a logical jump. I mean, Oda came up with it, so it's not like I can argue with him on that. I'm pretty sure it does not fall anywhere near the category of special paramecia the way that like Katakuri's Mochi Mochi no Mi does. But she would probably be able to, and we haven't quite had Perospero and his devil fruit fully explained at this point in time in the story, but like we've kind of seen that demonstrated a little bit. I think we've seen him make the laboratory for Caesar out of it already with his candy fruit, but still, it's another thing that makes sense. And I just like that. It's like, it's a simple idea. It's like, what's her power? Butter. Okay, we'll run with it. It's just like, it's not a superpower that you tend to think of. It's like, well, I mean, depending on what you're using it for, you could create quite a few things out of it. I mean, I'm sure she can do a lot of manipulation in regards to the consistency of the butter and different things like that. And then, be able to use that to form different things that she can fight with, possibly. Not that we get to see her do a huge amount of that stuff, because we don't get to see that much of her combat skills with her devil fruit. Although I guess it could be more of a defensive type of a thing than an offensive type, give or take what's going on. But going into her history, so as I said, she is 31 years old, and she is, of course, the older twin sister of Poirier. They were born 31 years ago, which means after Big Mom was probably fairly well set up in Totland and building out all of her different islands, building up her, her crew and her kingdom and everything like that. She may not have been considered a Yonko yet at this point in time, but she was probably a pretty threatening pirate at that point in time. Just in regards to everything. And this would have been before, I know it technically has no bearing on it, but this would have been like before Kaido would have been set up at Wano, because he only got set up at Wano like at the earliest like 39 years ago or like 29 years ago or something like that. So Big Mom already would have been like building up her empire at this point in time. We don't ever see them as children in regards to Galette. I would like to see, she probably looks adorable as a child, but, with her, angry face, which is just kind of funny. But we don't really see anything of that. At some point in time, she would have gotten her devil fruit. Again, we don't know when. And at some point in time, she would have been appointed as Minister of Butter on Margarine Island. It's just like, here, honey, happy birthday. Here's an island. It's themed after butter. It fits your devil fruit. So it's like, it's that type of a thing, probably. Although I would assume, I mean, as much as, nepotism is involved clearly in like Big Mom's crew, I mean, her children are strong, so it makes sense. But I would assume that, like, and I haven't really mentioned this that much with like the other ones who are ministers of their respective islands, but in regards to their different islands, it's, they must have some form of being able to like actually perform administrative duties. I mean, they probably have like assistants and stuff like that help them in regards to, telling them, okay, these are all of these delivery schedules that you need. These are all of this stuff. These paperwork needs signing. These employees requested vacation time. These ones are getting married. Here's a wedding card for them for you to sign. These ones had a baby, different things like that. There's some new butter we need you to taste, whatever the case may be. I'm sure a lot of, setup is designed into that system for the different, like the ones who are the ministers of the different islands that they have to be in charge of. Because I would assume that they would take those duties fairly seriously on top of being, members of the crew. Although admittedly we never get to see Galette on her island. We never get to see a lot of the different siblings on their actual island. We never see Katakuri on Flower Island. We never see Biscuit on like Cracker Island, or Cracker on Biscuit Island, excuse me. We don't see Montdor on Cheese Island. Different things like that. It's like those are their respective islands that they are in charge of, but we never actually see them there. Then again, there is a huge event happening in Totland at that point in time in the story when all of this is happening. So it makes sense that none of them are on their respective islands. They have made their way to, Whole Cake Island for the wedding. So it makes sense. Actually, I kind of think the only one that I remember specifically that I know we saw on the island that is theirs, besides putting on Cacao Island, that's different, is when I believe we see Amande on Nuts Island, because that's the island that she's the minister of, and she happens to be there when Big Mom is there attacking Nuts Island. So I don't know exactly, but I don't believe we ever saw any pictures of Butter Island. But so from there, eventually we get to the point for Galette, where we have the Whole Cake Island arc where that actually starts happening. And pretty much the introduction to that is when her and a couple of the other ones are trying to deal with Mama while she's having her hunger pangs for the croquembouche at the beginning of the arc, when we're introduced to Mama having her hunger pangs. And as she's like running through Sweet City, and Galette along with Moscato and some of the others are trying to calm her down, are trying to keep her from attacking the citizens during this time frame. We don't get too much. We don't see any of Galette's abilities at this point in time. And then during this time frame is, of course, when Moscato gets a bunch of his life ripped out of him by Big Mom. And then we see Galette, Opera, and Montdor all just oh my god, we see them get very, very concerned and, upset over the fact that, Moscato has been attacked, has been hurt very badly by their mother. And they're like, oh my god, we have to calm Mama down. And they're very happy and relieved when, Jimbei shows up with the talking croquembouche and gives it to Big Mom, and she calms down. We don't get too much else of Galette at that point in time, but we get a little bit more later on when Cracker has now been defeated by Luffy, and he gets sent flying through the air, through several buildings, and crashes into the side, I believe, of Whole Cake Chateau. And again, it's Galette, Opera, and Montdor. These three are around each other a lot, and Galette and Montdor are around each other a lot. I don't know why. I guess Oda may have just drawing these two next to each other, I guess. He's I've pre-established them. I'll use them a lot. As opposed to some of the other ones that he at least put in design measures for, and then we barely see them in the story. But we see, so, and we see those three very concerned again and very just distraught over the fact that Cracker has been defeated. And they're like, oh my god, this is not good. And they're just appalled over the fact that one of their sweet commanders had been defeated. And they're like, okay, well, we know what we're going to do. And they gather up their little army contingency that they then head out towards the Seducing Woods, where they have determined that, oh, this is where he was defeated because he was sent there by Mama to try to deal with the Straw Hats, try to deal with Luffy and such and his group. So now we're going to go and deal with this. And they head out, and so this is during the time frame when Montdor is messing with Luffy with his book powers, and then Opera is working alongside that to fight against Luffy and cause harm that way. Galette is mostly just watching while all this is happening, and she ends up helping capture Nami. As I mentioned, she uses her butter powers to capture Nami, so that way she's not able to, use her climb attack. And that's when Amande then, kind of strip searches Nami a bit and finds, the Viver card from Lola. And Galette, along with the rest of them, they actually, as I stated with, like, Montdor and Amande during this moment, they actually seem concerned because they think that, like, the Straw Hats may have actually hurt Lola. And they're like, oh my god, they may have actually hurt Lola, because they themselves still care about their sister. Mama has her issues with Lola, of course, but the others still care about her. She is still their sister. But, so there wasn't really, she's there for that. And they capture the Nami and Luffy, and they take them back to the castle after Luffy's been, knocked out and defeated. And they take them to the prisoner library. And Galette is there, where she just kind of is like, I think she's like sitting on a couch, but she's kind of like sitting like kind of on Opera's shoulder-ish, because he's so much bigger than her. And she's just like kind of sitting on his shoulder, which I personally would not want to sit on whipped cream, to be fair. But she's also sitting on, like, her cloak thing. So, maybe. Not. I don't particularly think that whipped cream is the easiest thing to get out of feathers, though. I don't know. But, like, she's there and, she's present while Luffy and Nami are being interrogated by Montdor and by Perospero. And then when, they bring the Denden... I don't remember if she's there when they bring in... Yeah, no, she is there when they bring in the Denden Mushi for Mama to talk to Luffy and Nami over the Denden Mushi. So they're there during that moment, or Galette's there during that moment. And we have another moment where a little bit later, where they're interrupted by Angelus, who is like one of the youngest sons from the Charlotte family. He's the one that has like the motorcycle caterpillar, I guess would be a way of putting it. And they, he shows up and tells them that, an intruder broke into the treasure room, which this is, of course, referencing back to, like, what's going on with, like, Brooke and Smoothie at this point in time, when, like, Brooke is trying to deal with, like, Smoothie's forces in the treasure room. And Galette just seems to, like, ooh and ah over the little brother. And then, they head off to go and work on that. Later, they do have the meeting. Galette is present at the meeting where they're discussing, Sanji, the Sanji retrieval team, and then what's going on with the Vinsmokes, where they're like, the Vinsmokes are currently, Judge and the three boys are currently easily distracted with all of the booze and food and women that we gave them, so they're off dealing with that. So they're not a problem right now. We know exactly where they are. And then during that time frame is, of course, when they've already, like, Pudding has already had her interaction with Reiju. It shot Reiju in the leg, and then, messed with her memories and sent Reiju to the infirmary, where Reiju is being looked after there. And, Montdor is kind of the head of this meeting, and, Galette's just kind of there during this moment. She's not super involved in the meeting, but, she's there. And then, so there's, like, an added scene in the anime where they have it where, Galette and Montdor find Bobbin after Bobbin has been, like, hurt by Sanji, when he left to go and find Luffy and everything. And they find Bobbin, but that's just in the anime. I mean, it doesn't really make any difference between that and what happens in the manga. That doesn't make any difference. And then the next time we see Galette is during the tea party. And, while she's there, she's like, I think she's talking to, like, Niji or something like that while all of, all of the festivities are going on before it's time for the wedding. And, of course, she watches, when Pudding and Sanji arrive. And then, when all chaos breaks out and everything like that, when chaos ensues, with all the Luffys jumping out of the cake and everybody else going on, and, the portrait getting smashed and everything like that. During this time frame, Galette is she's not super involved in what's going on. She's like noticing things, like she notices that like Mama scrapes her knee, and she has to, you know, when Mama's letting out her scream after the picture has been broken and it's been brought to her attention, you know, Galette's having to, you know, cover her ears during that time frame because of Mama's scream, while she watches as Beiji and Vito and Gotti are using their weapon launchers to try to attack Mama. Thankfully, you know, the scream destroys the weapons. This is, you know, Caesar's shoddy craftsmanship on display, very much. So that's going on. She's given mochi earplugs by Katakuri, and then, you know, they're part of the group that are proceeding to try to, you know, break into Beiji's, you know, big father fortress and everything like that. Then when... I believe this is when, during this time frame is, of course, you know, the Straw Hats and the Vinsmokes and the fire tank pirates inside are like, okay, here's the plan. The judge and his kids are going to act as a distraction while Caesar flies Beiji out of here. Because we need to escape. And, which they do need to escape. And they're getting, you know, so that's the plan. And they head out to go fight. You know, the Vinsmokes head out to go fight. And Luffy goes out and tries to fight as well. To just buy them more time, I guess. And during this time frame, Galette, along with several of her, I think it's with Daifuku and Smoothie, subdue Reiju and some of the others as they're all trying to escape. So some of that happens there. You know, eventually, you know, the Tamate Bako pops open and, you know, explodes and everything, and that causes, you know, the chateau to collapse, and of course, Galette falls with the chateau. Katakuri catches her, because of course he would, and, you know, she's there when, you know, she sees that Stroyson is, you know, very hurt after what he managed to do. I think she's there when like putting, you know, after they've, you know, after Perospero has sent Mama off after the Straw Hats, meaning like, they have a spare wedding cake, go after them and you'll get a cake. And then, and he's like, oh dear God, what have I done? I think Galette's there during part of that, when like Pudding shows up and is like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go bake another cake. That's about it. We don't see Galette too much else during this part of the arc. We see her, I think, a little bit at the end of the arc when she's on the Big Mama Shanter, when they're watching the Sun Pirates save the Thousand Sunny. So that way the Thousand Sunny can then escape, and, you know, the Sun Pirates act as a distraction at that time frame. So I think that's the last time we see Galette. I don't really think we see her during, like, the whole rest of the end of the arc with, you know, bouncing from island to island and seeing all the different groups trying to, you know, fight, you know, the Straw Hats and everything like that. I don't think we see her during any other parts of that, or at least it's not listed. And then we have Wano Country, you know, the Wano arc, where she is involved. Not majorly. I mean, she's part of the group that Mama takes with her on their way to try to infiltrate Wano Country. And so Galette is there on the ship when everything is happening. When they try to go up the waterfall, when the ship gets knocked over the waterfall by King the first time and falls, and all of that. And then, you know, later, you know, when the ship is, you know, the Big Mama Shanter survives, and they're just like, oh, okay, well, what are we going to do now? And, you know, Mama, you know, they don't know what's happening with Mama yet. They assume she's not dead, but they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? They have Mama's Viva card, so they know that she's still alive. But they're just not exactly sure what they're going to do next. And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to try to climb the waterfall again. Which they try to climb the waterfall again. And then they get knocked over the waterfall again by Marco showing up. And then the ship falls again. And that's it. I mean, by a technicality, given the fact that we just saw Smoothie and Montor in one of the most recent chapters, it makes sense that the rest of them that were on the ship, even those with devil fruit powers, survived. Now, again, we still do not know at the time that I'm recording this, at the very least. We still do not know if Mama is alive or dead. If she is alive, what type of state she's in, what type of condition she's in, what type of condition Totland is in. Given the fact that Totland is an entire archipelago, that's a lot of islands that could have been affected by the sea level rising 1 meter. That could be a big problem for some of those islands and the residents of said islands. So that might be a problem there that Totland is having to deal with now as well, on top of everything else. And so that's a problem. If the sea level rises more and more, that's going to affect the islands in Totland, which is definitely going to, even if Mama is still alive, that's still going to affect whatever range of an empire she has if all of her citizens are having to keep moving to a different island, or just end up fleeing because they can kind of try to leave now if Mama's dead. They can't pull the whole leave or life thing anymore. Since we don't ever really see Galette interact with too many of the citizens, I don't really know how much of a relationship she has with the citizens of either her island or the other islands in general. Although mostly the relationship we've seen between the siblings and the people who live on either their respective islands or live in Totland in general are, well, they're here, they've paid the leave or life tax, so they're staying, and they are our citizens, so it is our job to keep them safe. So yeah, we'll keep them safe. But we don't really have much else there with that when it comes to Galette. I want to see her again. I hope we see her again at some point in time, even if it's just like the next time we cut back to Totland and we see a bunch of the siblings, or the Mama Shanter or whatever, and we see a bunch of the siblings together. She's there. I would like that. She seems to be rather capable and have her head on her shoulders for at least the bits that we see of her. She doesn't seem to necessarily jump to too many conclusions. Unlike some of the other siblings that are just annoying. Flampe. Flampe is not getting a video. I don't like Flampe, so I'm not talking about her, as opposed to Perospero, who I didn't like, but still talked about because he's a pretty major character during the Totland arc and the Wano arc. So, yeah. Don't care about Flampe. But that's what I have here for Galette. As I said, the last one that I will be doing for these ones will be Pudding, which is probably going to be a decently sized video because it's quite a long amount of time, a good chunk of time that we spend with Pudding throughout the Totland arc, and stuff that we have for her, history and backstory and everything like that. So she'll probably get quite a decent chunk of a video as well. Also, maybe we'll see her before now and then. I don't know. But that's what I have this for Galette. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.